You sent them a message, they read it, they never wrote back. A week passes, then two, and nobody ever tells you it's over. You just figure it out, alone, from the silence. No fight, no anger, not even a goodbye. They just stopped existing in your life, and for days you go through every word you said, every long pause, every small thing you might have done wrong. Maybe you asked for too much, maybe you weren't enough. Maybe what you had meant less than you thought. But what if you have it backwards? What if their leaving wasn't really about you? What if it was the loudest thing they ever told you about themselves? Psychologists have studied this pattern for 50 years. They found something most people miss. The ones who disappear without explaining are not the same person. They fall into three very different psychological types, three completely different reasons. And the third one ends with a conclusion most people refuse to accept. There are people who never learned that closeness was safe. In the 1960s, a British psychologist named John Bowlby noticed something quiet. The way we learned love as small children shapes how we relate to people for the rest of our lives. Some kids grew up in homes where closeness was unpredictable. A parent who was warm one minute, gone the next. One who needed too much from them, or noticed too little, or simply wasn't there. Those children learned a specific thing. They learned that showing what you need can get you hurt. So they stopped showing it. Not as a choice, their nervous system just turned the volume down. We call this avoidant attachment. And as adults, these people don't run from love. They run from the moment love is about to ask something of them. A real conversation, a relationship getting too close, a small disappointment that needs to be named. Those moments don't feel like connection to them. They feel like a door starting to close in on the room. So they leave first. It's not that they don't care. They often care a lot. They simply learned a long time ago that the safest exit was the silent one. A Pew Research study found 1 in 4 adults has been ghosted. 1 in 10 admits to doing it themselves. And when researchers asked why, most of them said the same 5 words. I didn't know how to explain. The door they close behind them is usually the same door someone once closed on them. But not everyone who disappears is choosing to leave. Some of them are frozen. In 1915, the physiologist Walter Cannon described what we now call fight or flight. What most of us forget is that there's a third response: freeze. When a person feels overwhelmed, too much emotion, too much conflict, too much expectation in the air, the nervous system can do something strange. It can shut the whole system off. Decades later, a researcher named Stephen Porges took this further. He called it polyvagal theory. He showed that under deep social stress, the body sometimes drops into something close to a collapse. We go quiet, still unable to respond. This is what happens to some people in conflict. Their phone is face down on the table. They want to write back, they know they should. They picture the message 100 times, but their hand never moves. And every day that passes makes it harder, because now they're not just explaining the original thing, they're also apologizing for the silence, and the longer it grows, the more impossible the door looks. Some of them come back, eventually. Most don't. Not because they stopped caring, because their nervous system convinced them that the door closed long before they had a chance to try again. The psychologist Marsha Linehan called this emotional dysregulation, the inability to find the middle. There's only total closeness or total disappearance. The in-between simply doesn't exist for them yet. And then there's a third type. These people don't disappear out of fear. They don't disappear from a shutdown. They disappear because they decided to. They watched the same conversation happen over and over. They tried saying it directly. They tried setting the limit, naming what wasn't working, asking for something to change. Nothing changed. Brené Brown, who has spent 20 years studying vulnerability and boundaries, says something that lands hard. Healthy boundaries are not negotiations. They are the limits you set when you stop being willing to be smaller than you are. For these people, leaving without an explanation is an avoidance. It's the last sentence in a conversation the other person was never actually in. They aren't cold. Many grieve the relationship for a long time afterward. But they learn something most of us spend years learning. You cannot keep teaching someone how to treat you if they've already decided not to learn. And here's the part that's hard to accept. Sometimes the kindest exit is a silent one, not because the other person doesn't deserve words, but because the words have already been spent and were never received. So the door closes without a knock, without a goodbye, and for the first time in a long time, they can breathe. But not every silent exit comes from a healthy place. Picture this: you are 7 years old. Your father leaves for work one morning. He never comes home for dinner. No one explains. Days pass, weeks. Eventually, someone tells you he lives in another city now. No one ever sits you down and tells you why. That child learns something without anyone teaching him directly. He learns that the people you love most are also the ones who can vanish without a word, and you don't get to ask why. The psychologist Roy Baumeister called the need to belong one of the most basic human drives, as basic as hunger. And when that need is broken too early in a way no one explained, the child grows up doing the only thing he ever saw modeled. He disappears too. Not because he's cruel, because he doesn't have any other word for goodbye. Children raised in vanishing houses tend to become vanishing adults. The pattern repeats quietly across generations, so some of the people who disappear from your life are not avoiding you. They are not setting a boundary. They are simply doing the only thing they ever learned to do when something becomes too big to hold. So if you've ever disappeared from someone's life, pause for a second. Ask yourself something honest. Was it fear? Was it freeze? Was it a boundary you had no other words for? Only you know the answer. But the fact that you're asking, that already says something. And if you're the one who was left, there's something quieter to sit with. Maybe their leaving was never really about you. Maybe it was the most honest thing they were able to offer in a moment when they had no other language. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean it was right. Understanding something and accepting it, those are two very different acts. There's an old line I keep coming back to. Some doors close because the room behind them was on fire. Maybe what we call disappearance is sometimes a kind of self-rescue. And maybe what we call silence is sometimes the loudest message a person had left to give. If something here found you, leave a quiet comment below. This is a place where people can speak softly. You won't be alone in what you say. And if you want more, the next essay is about people who never ask for help. What that looks like from the outside, where it comes from, and the quiet cost of being the strong one. I'll see you there.